Hi, this is Tracy Halesbass, right on Four Corners, on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I'm interviewing Jasmine Tritten about her memoir, The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane, and her child's book, Kato's Grand Adventure. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello.
And you're in Corrales, New Mexico.
Yes.
Well, I have to say I really enjoyed your two books, The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane, and the children's book. Is it Kato or Kato's Grand Adventure?
Kato's Grand Adventure.
Kato's, yes. Kato the cat.
Yes.
Well, your memoir, The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane, is amazing. I was just awestruck by every adventure you went on, from living in Nazi-occupied Denmark to California to becoming a belly dancer and traveling the world.
Yes.
Amazing story.
And my life is not over yet.
Absolutely not. Well, of course you went, what do you call it?
Ziplining.
Ziplining for your 70th birthday. That's
a few years ago, yeah.
Very good. Yes. I can't wait to see what else happens in your exciting life.
Yeah, you never know.
Nope. I thought one thing was really interesting, how you danced with snakes, but you got bit while you were dancing with a boa constrictor.
Well, that was because he felt insecure because he had lost his grip around my arm, and then I was turning around and he felt insecure, so he put all his teeth in my arm.
Ooh.
To hold on. Yeah, and I was hoping he was letting go, and it took a long time, and then finally he let go.
But you kept dancing.
I kept turning around because I didn't want anybody to know what had happened.
Oh, wow.
And I put the veil all around, and then when I got out into the ladies' room, and she said, "Oh, my God, you're bleeding all on your arm. I'm going to take it to the hospital." I said, "No, I'll be fine. I just washed it off." Had about 20 little holes in my arm.
Oh, my gosh.
But, it was okay.
Yes. So, obviously, you've been writing this book for years because you've been journaling. But when did you decide to put together a memoir?
Well, it actually started because for years my children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews in Europe a lot, and also here, they all were asking at various times, why did you leave Denmark and how did you leave, and how old were you, and what became of your life? And then when I was up zip-lining, and I was ready to zip-line across the two mountaintops in Angel Fire, 10,000 feet up, I looked all the way down, and then I saw my whole life in pictures in front of my eyes.
Wow.
And so when I came down, it was flashing in front of my eyes. So when after ziplining and coming down, I decided that that was the time to put together all of these memoirs from my life. Started just writing all the little stories, you have in your head of the shimmering images, those life-changing moments, and then I sort of stringed them together, and that's how I started. And it took some years.
I can imagine.
And then I won an honorable mention at the New Mexico Press Women Communication Contest.
Very good. And a finalist at the New Mexico Arizona Book Awards.
Okay, well now that was for the Kato's Grand Adventure that we got this year. We got an award for Kato's Grand Adventure. This year we got I got a first place
Very good.
for the book design of Kato's Grand Adventure, which means the cover and the illustrations that I did. And it went national, and I got honorable mention. And then my husband, Jim, and I, together, we got a second place for the writing of Kato's Grand Adventure for children's fiction.
Oh, it's a wonderful
That was this
story.
year. Thank you.
And that's what I was going to ask. You did the illustrations.
I did the illustration, and we both wrote it together.
I like that. Well, the illustrations are really nice with all the animals, the coyote and the rabbit and all the other ones.
Owl.
And the owl. I like the owl.
Yes. Yes.
That was great.
So they're all ink drawings with color pencils.
Uh-huh. It's a good...
But they lend themselves very well to the printed page.
Ah, yes. But you also, speaking of your drawings, you do oil paintings?
Yes. I've always been an artist, and I've done large oil paintings for a long time. And I do photography, so I do a combination of writing and painting and photography.
Well, in your memoir, there's a lot of photographs which really add to the story. I enjoyed seeing those very much.
It does add credibility to a story. I probably have about 100 different photographs, and of course they go all the way back to 1945 or 50 or someplace like 1950.
Yes.
And that's a lot of pictures from my childhood, from the villa I grew up in Denmark, on the ocean.
You really fell in love with Carmel, California.
Oh, Carmel, yes. That was where my soul felt very much at home. And, of course, at the time I arrived in 1964, it was an artist colony, and it was just the beginning of the hippie movement, and it was a big eye-opener for a 21-year-old girl that came from Denmark.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And it was very inspiring for art, and there was lots of artists and musicians and writers there, so it was a mecca for any creative person to be there at that time.
And you learned so much. You got a degree in art?
Yes. I met my husband in Carmel, and then we went to Virginia Beach on the other side of the United States, and I got a degree in art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in art, and in English. So my second love was writing, and of course I've always been writing in journals since I was a young girl. I wrote journals every day, and and on all my trips I wrote journals. And when I left for America, I wrote to my mother. That was in '64. We didn't have iPhones or computers or anything. So I wrote to my mother every 2 weeks long letters about my life, and until about 15 years ago. And she collected all of these letters in a big oak trunk.
Oh.
And so in these last 4 or 5 years, when I went to visit her every year, I took a lot of these letters back. So I have all of these letters to use as material for my writing. Mostly I do memoir, but I venture out a little bit with this children's story. And then also I wrote a short story, historical fiction, about my husband's it's a love story about my husband's grandparents that grew up in Hungary.
How nice.
And that story is called Two Hungarian Doves, and that was published in a book called How I Met My Other.
Oh.
edited by I.L. Hockey, and it's a Orange publishing company in Florida.
Very
And
good.
it was anthology, and this is one of the stories there.
And you also write poetry?
Well, I did write a little poetry. I was thinking of maybe getting into it a little bit.
Right.
I wrote a couple, and one got published years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In one of my poems appears in Tranquil Rains of Summer, the National Library of Poetry.
Oh.
But that's a lot of years ago.
That's very good, though.
Yeah.
So which would you rather be doing, writing or painting?
Everything. It's whatever strikes my fancy and my spirit at the time.
Are
So
you?
I'm not a writer that sits down, 10 hours a day and writes.
Mm-hmm.
No. I write when sometimes I'll wake up early in the morning and have an idea, and the same with paintings.
Well, that's exciting. Are you working on another writing now?
I belong to a critique group
Yes.
here in Albuquerque that I just joined, and we write. So I've been writing short stories. I have written quite a lot of short stories that have been published
Mm-hmm.
in various anthologies, and I've been writing one about a one-legged Stumpy, a one-legged roadrunner.
I love that.
But that's a true story because
Oh,
it
really?
was one that was around here. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it has a sad ending because I was so impressed with this roadrunner who actually just lived on one leg, and he came up here where we live, and I saw him one time with a lizard in the mouth, and I wondered how he was going to eat it when he's standing on one leg.
Mm-hmm.
So he just stood with that lizard in his mouth for a couple of hours,
Oh my.
and then I guess till the lizard died is swallowed.
Right.
But I admired this amazing one-legged roadrunner, how he survived at least 3 months, and then he ended up drowning in the water bowl for my llamas. I had 2 llamas.
Yes.
And so that was very sad.
Oh, that's too bad. But
It was
he's.
the wind took him.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I love the story about your llamas too. So, do you want to read something for us from your
Yes,
memoir?
I'll read. Let me read from The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane. The very first chapter is called Terror, and it is actually my very first memory when I was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Nazi-occupied Denmark during the Second World War. We lived in Seaside, a 2-story villa on the coast north of Copenhagen. Dad, a wealthy businessman, imported coal. He was part of the underground, helping Jews to flee in boats at night from Denmark to Sweden. My first intense memory is from age 3. A banging thundered through our house in early 1945. When Mother opened the heavy oak door, a massive figure barged into our hallway. Both of us leaped backward. My eyes focused on long, black, shiny boots, stretching forever upward and continuing into what I now know was a crisp black SS uniform. I shivered through the body from head to toe. "Are there any Jews in this house?" a husky voice demanded in a guttural German accent. Mommy leaned back with arms flailing to the side. Her chin and lips trembled. "No." The giant soldier ignored her answer, stomped into our house, and searched every room upstairs, on the main floor, and in our basement. I slipped behind Mom, grabbed her skirt, and clung to the back of her legs. She quivered. Squeaks of leather boots irritated my ears as each step of the strange man hit the parquet floor. I cupped the hands over the sides of my head. After scrutinizing our home, the intruder marched back towards the front door and kicked the couch in the living room on the way. As he leaned over Mom, close to her face, he boomed once more. "Are you sure no Jews are hiding here?" Her head shook from one side to the other. "There are no Jews in this house." I crumbled to the floor behind her for shelter. Following moments of silence, the stranger strutted out of the door, leaving the smell of polished boots and the wake of terror echoing in our home. My mother lifted me into her arms and held me tight. "I'm safe." After setting me down, she walked towards the cellar, opened a hidden door, and whispered, "Okay, Miriam and Eichel, come out now." Often Jewish people were hiding in the loft or basement of our villa, situated next to the water between Denmark and Sweden. Many of them were friends of my parents. Late at night, Dad assisted them to board boats that sailed them across to a safer place in Sweden. Even though my father risked our lives, or maybe because of it, he will always be a hero in my eyes.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, but I still remember every little bit. I remember the room. I remember the smell of the room.
Wow.
I could see it right in front of my eyes. Yeah.
That's history, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was, pretty scary to grow up in the war.
Right.
When we were occupied by the Nazis, it was very scary. And when the planes came, we had to, pull all the curtains down. And I had some other memories. One time I remember I heard thunder. I said to my mom, "Is this thunder?" And we were having a party at our house, and she said no. And then everybody left, and we had to pull down all the curtains.
Mm.
And so I have those kind of memories. It's a lot of fear.
Yes.
Growing up with a lot of fear.
Did you know that there were people hiding in the house?
Yes, because I saw them. And some of them were our friends.
Uh-huh.
And lots of Danes. The Danes were very brave, and they actually helped a lot of the Jews in Denmark to get out before the Nazis really got them.
Right.
So it was amazing. And my father was amazing. Yeah.
And then on a lighter note, there's Kato's Grand Adventure.
Okay, I can read a little. I'll read just a page of that.
Great.
This is a chapter called Rescue.
Okay.
So, Kato's neck reached out from the water. He gulped for air as he floated down the rapidly moving stream. His back feet kicked in the water, trying to reach the bottom. But he didn't feel the bottom and was unable to keep his head above water. With eyes closed, he tried to hold his breath, but the water was freezing cold, and he took in a deep breath of water. As strong, sharp toes gripped him from above and lifted him into the sky, Kato felt his body tighten. He inhaled a lot of air, coughed, and spit out water. Then Kato opened his eyes and looked up at the flecked feathers of the owl. The owl held Kato as lightly as possible in his toes so as not to hurt him with his claws. Kato looked down at the river as he was flown through the trees. They landed in a clearing on the far side of the gully. The owl released Kato from his grip and asked him if he was okay. Kato was fine, and the owl flew away without a sound. Kato looked to see where the owl went, but collapsed shivering on the ground. His eyes closed, and everything went dark and quiet.
Yes, Kato was an adventuresome kitty too.
Yeah, he had an adventuresome life. That's right.
It.
Yeah, he overcame a lot of obstacles, as I did too.
That's right. That's right. I thought about that. I read the memoir first and then Kato, and I went, oh yeah, both adventurous. So I wanted to ask you about the languages you speak. Did you know English when you went to America?
Yes. Being a Dane living in a country with 4.5 million people, unless you learn some other languages, you're stuck in a very small world. So in school in Denmark, I started learning English from 2nd grade on, and I learned German from 3rd grade on, and I learned French from 4th grade on.
Oh.
And then we also learned a little Swedish. So I used to speak 5 languages pretty fluently. And then when I was in California, I studied Arabic, how to read and write Arabic for a whole year. And that was because at that time I was a belly dancer, and I had all these Middle Eastern records. And it irritated me. I couldn't understand what it said, so I started how to read and write Arabic.
Amazing. But
that I have forgotten because you have to keep that up.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a complex language.
The only language you really need here in this state is, of course, Spanish.
Right.
So I have been learning some Spanish also.
Learning Spanish probably won't be very difficult for you.
No, languages come pretty easy.
That's amazing.
They do, and I have 2 grandchildren up in Stockholm, and their mother is from Colombia, and my son, of course, was born in California. So they are trilingual. And I remember when my husband and I were there the last time, they would speak English to us and then turn around and continue the conversation in Spanish to the mother.
Isn't that
and that
amazing?
blew Jim's mind.
Yes, that's very impressive.
Then they talk Swedish with their friends. But, they grew up doing that since they were a couple of years old.
That's great. So you have, so listeners can find your books on Amazon?
Yes.
And where else?
You can either find it under Jasmine Tritten, or under the book's titles, either Kato's Grand Adventure or The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane.
Great.
Amazing. We live in this little village, Corrales.
Yes.
And there is a little one pharmacy, and he has Kato's Grand Adventure in there, and he's sold probably about 20 of them.
Great.
Yeah. So, I got, we got the first place for that one. So that was a really nice to be recognized in a different way for my art, because for years I've had my paintings in galleries, and they've sold all over the world, really.
Mm-hmm.
I have some paintings in Denmark, some on the East Coast, and some in California. But now I get recognized in a different way as an artist, which is interesting.
So can listeners look at your art anywhere around the area?
Well, they can look up my name, Jasmine Tritten, and then they can find art on the internet.
Great.
Yeah, I think I am in different places.
I think you are. I looked and found several mentions of you and some of your artwork.
I used to be in galleries all the time, but now I'm not anymore. I've done it all my life. I want to add that I hope that with my the journey of an adventuresome Dane, I hope that I inspired a lot of women to take chances and to inspire them to change their lives, and in order to, instead of staying put, you can change your life. I hope I have inspired many women.
I think that when you wrote about your accident and recovery, then how you ventured out and took on life again is very inspiring.
Yeah, I'm a true survivor. Let's put it this way. And I'm a true survivor. And I think when people, they, read about that maybe they will change something in them, and they will know that they can do, similar things. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And overcoming fears and obstacles for recovery and growth and change. And all of the stories in my book are all life-changing, shimmering images or life-changing experiences. And some of them are, very positive, and some of them are pretty negative. But
yes.
I always come out good in the end.
Yes. Very encouraging. Well, thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
You're welcome.
And that was the lovely Jasmine Tritten talking about her memoir, The Journey of an Adventuresome Dane, and her children's book, Kato's Grand Adventure. This is Tracy Hales Vass, right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico.